Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Filipino Millennial Mindset Podcast, a mindset, a podcast dedicated to expanding the mindset of millennials and other generations na nakikinig. Hopefully, other generations na nakikinig din. Uh, Heads up lang today, merong mga minumove na furnitures dito sa bahay. So expect nyo na medyo may tatahol na aso, may mga maingay. So yun lang. And today, ang topic is about everything good about the Philippines. Kasi guilty ako dito na tuwing pinag-uusapan ng kultura ng Pinas, ang naiisip ko lagi ay yung negative. Pero, one of our conversations with Philip and Kim, I think that was off-cam. And napag-usapan namin yung mga good things about Philippines and naisip ko they are things na should be talked about more often kasi nga puro negative ang na-highlight sa Pinas eh. Pero to start it off, si Kevin, so since if I can recall correctly, ilang months ka lang nung umalis ka ng Pinas, di ba?
6 months,
Months. And then you went back when you were 9 years old.
9 years old.
Tapos, gaano katagal ka nagstay sa Pinas nung 9 years old ka?
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you remember, anything about the Filipino culture na nag-stand out sa'yo while you were here?
When I was 9, just the family, and that was strong.
Right.
Eating dinner together, making sure everyone's at the table for dinner, being present during dinner. That's what I remember. What else? Just having fun. Just Filipinos just enjoy, man. Just enjoying life, happy. Even though, like I mentioned earlier, off camera, how the places we were in, they were kind of in poverty, but their attitude was always just positive. Yeah.
Pero nung lumipat ka ng US, you guys didn't do that na kumain sa table ng together with family?
We did. We did. It's not as often as, well, maybe it was because we were all on vacation, so maybe that's why. But here I noticed that because of our schedules, right? The busy,
Right.
different schedules. So it's not as often as we did when we were in the Philippines.
I see. Pero now na you're older, do you see like the difference, even though hindi ka lumaki sa Pilipinas, do you see the difference between, the culture ng Pinas dyan sa culture ng US?
Not really, no. Only because, like I mentioned, here in Hawaii, there's a lot of Filipinos, so the Filipino culture is still strong here that they carried from the Philippines.
Pero, so since nabanggit mo yun, you're not that exposed to yung kultura ng US?
Sorry, I cut off. I think my connection lost for a bit.
Yeah, since majority ng nandyan sa Hawaii is mostly Filipinos and you mentioned ang parang nananaig pa rin is yung kulturang Pinoy. You were not that exposed to the culture of US, American culture?
I was. There's a difference. Just what would you say it? It's different. I lived in California for a little bit, and their culture with the Filipinos compared to the Filipinos in Hawaii was different. The work ethic, it's still just as strong, the work ethic for Filipinos, but I think here in Hawaii, the value of family time it's stronger here in Hawaii. Yeah. I think that's the main difference that I noticed with California and Hawaii as far as Filipinos.
Right, that's good. So, on the top of your head, ano yung parang things about Filipino culture na talagang yung pag nakita mo, talagang it's positive for you. Tapos, you wouldn't trade it for anything else, any other culture. Like, for me, para sa akin, na-expand ko later, hindi ko pagpapalit na ang first language ko ay Tagalog. Explain ko later kung bakit. Something like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is for me that I noticed with Filipinos compared to other cultures, not that other cultures don't have this, but it's more prominent with Filipinos that I've noticed is the humility, humbleness. Because they always say Filipinos are hardworking. Like the episode you did on being yes man, I know that it was we noted it as more negative, but
Yeah.
the humility is that's a positive trait. Very humble, and of course when to say no, but that's a big thing that I appreciate about the Filipino culture is that humility and what Philip mentioned earlier, the respect, especially for your elders. That's big with Filipinos here.
Yeah. I think na-highlight namin as medyo hindi maganda yon sa about Filipino culture, yung ay pagiging yes man. Pero I think it's when it's just too much, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pero I also think na starting with the level of humility na meron ng Pinoy is much better than nothing. Kasi when you start with that level of humility, the next thing you need to do is just learn how to use it the right way, when to say yes, when to say no.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's situational, right?
Yep.
Not just, yeah, it's situational. I think for the most part, that's our foundation is to be humble, to have humility. And then different settings, workplace, or when you're dealing with certain people, then you might have more or less humility.
Yeah, it's always better to start from humility, not the other way around. Mas mahirap maging humble pag galing ka sa mayabang.
Yeah, exactly.
Sobrang yabang.
Right.
Yeah. And then for you, Philip, so you left Philippines when you were 11? Tama, no? Tama, no?
11, yeah.
Yeah, 11. And then, how long have you been? Or, kailan yung parang umuwi ka ng Pilipinas ever since you left? Parang ano yung gap niya?
So 1993, tapos 2004.
1993, 2004. And then may mga from there may mga bakasyon na umuwi kayo.
Sorry, no, is it 2004? Yeah, 2004. No, hindi ako bumalik nun kasi ako taga Marikina. When I left the Philippines, yung Marikina ang dumi. It's dirty, man. Like there's garbage everywhere, Marikina. When I got back in 2004, it's so clean. There's no garbage. It's really, really clean. Marikina until now, I think it's the cleanest city in the Philippines or something like that. Pero yeah, I remember a lot when I was a kid. I remember yung Marikina, I can see the mountains, and then hindi masyadong maraming bahay, hindi masyadong maraming building, tapos yung mga kalsada, lupa pa. And then when I got back, ang dami ng bahay, dami ng buildings. It's busier. I kind of miss the bukid and my playground when I was a kid, playing in the mud and stuff like that. Yeah, pero yun, naalala ko lahat.
Nice. Pero for you, ano yung about Filipino culture na positive na pinaka nagsa-stand out sa'yo?
Yung meron akong ibang tingin kasi galing ako sa ibang bansa. Let's say I'm from North America, so the culture here is very different from the cultural values here are different from the cultural values sa Pilipinas. Dito, like to touch on sinabi ni Kevin kanina, nung tinanong mo siya kung kumakain ba sila sa Hawaii as a family together. Like dito, it's actually a treat to eat together as a family kasi the job gets in the way. People here, I don't know, the structure of how to make money here is dependent on how you perform and how long you take, how many hours you spend on work to further your career or to save money or to buy a house. it becomes a rat race. Kunyari, meron kang bahay dito, you have to pay your mortgage. You have a house, you have to pay your insurance and your installments for the car. Yung let's say, yung sa bahay mo, may property ka, tax ka, babayaran mo yung kalsada, you have to pay the electric bill. So it's a rat race. In order to keep up for that rat race, you have to sacrifice your time away from your family to make that money to pay for it. Therefore, yung kultura mo na is shifted more to the family, your thinking is shifted to the family because you're providing for the family, but you're really selling your time for money away from your family. Yun yung nakita ko sa North America. So when they say, nung bata ko, ito yung pinaka narinig kong word, especially when I was in grade 6, going into high school. You know, yung pagka, you know, in your 11, you know, may mga brand name na, you know, brand name. Oh, wow, imported. You know, that stuff. Oh, wow,
yeah.
Imported. Wow, Nike. Wow, Puma. Yeah. And then I remember that Giordano. I don't know if you know those shirts, Giordano or Pen Shop. Then I would ask my uncle, hey, could you buy me some Pen Shop? And then Giordano, and then he would buy it for me. But then when I went to school, my classmate would check the tag and they say it's fake, right? They know how to check if it's fake, right? You know. So I was like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, imported is like good. But it's really just it's not really true. Because it's more like let's just say this: America in the 80s and in let's say 80s, they did a good job marketing themselves as the it country. You know, like born in the USA. That era, James Brown, all those things. Therefore, yung mga bansa ng Pilipinas tayo, na program tayo na para bang, wow, that's the promised land, that's paradise.
Yeah.
We don't even know that we're living in the Garden of Eden. You know what I mean? Pero ngayon, nakikita, especially now, nakikita ko sa YouTube, and then pinag-aaralan ko mabuti, it's actually faster to get rich in the Philippines rather than in the US or in Canada. It's actually faster. It's actually very easy to be an entrepreneur sa Pilipinas than the US. Kasi sa US tsaka sa Canada, you need capital. Yung pera para to start a business. Sa Pilipinas, not really. Right? So those are stuff na yung mga positives sa Pilipinas, which is very significant if you think about it when it comes to family. Family time sa Pilipinas, I think it's rooted from even before the time ng colonialism ng Kastila. Kasi yung values ng nanay-tatay sa anak, yung obligation nila, tas yung obligation ng anak sa nanay-tatay pag tumanda na, I don't think it's a recent thing. I really believe it's way past that, thousands of years ago sa Pilipinas yung kultura na yun. And it's still being prolonged until now. You know, people, ibang tao inisip nila negative, pero I know it is kind of negative if you have the mentality of na sinasabi ko kanina para North America, where you trade your time for money in order to be in the right race. But if you know, every time I speak to a person I used to work in a hospital, so every time I used to speak to a person that's close to death, the pinaka-regret nila is time away from their family. So I knew right then and there na the trade-off is not worth it. So totoo lang, I really like that aspect sa Filipino culture.
Yeah, napaisip ako dun sa na-mention mo yun. Kasi parang yun yung go-to na solution ng most of the time ng Pinoy, di ba, na pag gusto makaahon, I have to go abroad. Di ba?
But it's false. Kasi yun ang advertising ng 80s, and until now, they believe it.
Yeah, and going back sa... Sorry.
Go sorry. So what's the pagdating sa buong mundo, dati ang value ng Pilipinas is rice and coconuts, mangoes, you know, their most important export. Ngayon, the most important export ng Pilipinas is Filipinos. So, yung mga Pilipino, they would go to Saudi. My cousins, man, they went to Saudi to make money, and then they send the money back home, to run the economy, right? For their family, aahon yung pamilya nila, those kind of stuff. And I think it's wrong. I think sa Pilipinas, kasalanan din ng mga politika ng Pilipinas, pero kung ma-change lang yun talaga yung pinag-iisipan ng Pilipino na in order for you to succeed is to go to another place, another country, like I think it's wrong. I think it's a false it's a good advertisement in the 80s, but it doesn't apply nowadays.
Yeah. And really good point na mention mo kanina, yung isa sa mga advantage dito sa being in the Philippines is yung opportunity mo magtayo ng business.
Mm-hmm.
Kasi ngayon na-try ko na na-realize ko talaga tong sinabi mo to na man, kahit nga just kung meron kang 5,000 pesos and you spend your time on consuming the right information and resources, you'll be able to create a business in your home, sa bahay mo lang. And you mentioning na yung nabanggit mo last episode ba yun or was it off cam, pero yung di ba meron kaming coffee shop, na-mention mo yung mga kailangan kung dyan ako magtatayo ng coffee shop. Sobrang daming kailangan and sobrang meticuloso nung mga inspections and all that.
Not just that, you have to have insurance. Nakalimutan ko sabihin to. You have to have insurance. Kasi if you have a business here, 100% you're gonna get sued by a customer.
Damn.
Yeah, because everybody wants the dough, right? Yung ganun yun. So, kahit na ako, I was a wedding photographer for a while and a fashion photographer. I had to pay for insurance na monthly kasi delikado na malay mo, demanda ako ng mga 50,000, mga ganun. Wala akong pera dun. Those kind of stuff. Pero Pilipinas, it's easy to start a business. Tapos, you don't even have to have a PhD or MD or
exactly.
Nakikita ko, like, if you really spend time sa YouTube, tas tingnan mo yung mga successful business sa Pilipinas, yung sila, para bang hindi nila hinahabol yung pera, napansin ko. Para bang gusto nilang gumawa ng parang importante sa buhay nila na para bang it's not that much of a waste of time. And they got obsessed of studying this thing. Yung obsession na yon naging panghasa sa kutsilyo nila na to perfect the skill. And then, because of that obsession, they became geniuses. Genius is really an obsession. It's not intelligence, right? Tapos doon, lumalakas sila. Just watch all the YouTube videos ng mga Pilipino na nagsa-start ng business na naging successful. They're not smart. And they just got obsessed and then they just kept going. Like and sa Pilipinas nangyari yun. Dito, in North America, it's very difficult to do maraming red tape. Now, you have to borrow from the bank. You have to get business loans, business plan to present to the bank. And yung business plan, if you write a business plan, sometimes mag-hire ka pa ng lawyer para tingnan yung business plan mo kung okay, para ma-approve ng banko, pautang ka. Yung utang mo, yung babayaran mo, may interest pa yun na malaki. Diba? Tapos when you have to rent a place to start your business, and then, oh my God, aabutin ka ng, you have to sell your house in order for you to start a business, if you have a house. Talaga, sa Pilipinas, you can basically do a lot.
Yeah, and wala ka masyadong kailangang alalahanin.
Wala.
Thank you for helping me realize that. So, lalo kong parang na-appreciate yung coffee shop namin.
Kasi, iba yung perspective ko sa perspective na lumakas sa Pilipinas. Kasi nakita ko na hindi ko naman sabihin na pinaghirapan, pero na-experience ko lang. Tapos, nakausap ko yung mga successful tsaka unsuccessful people. Most of them unsuccessful. kung anong ginagawa nila. And then, tinitingnan ko mabuti kasi it's high risk pagdating sa starting a business dito sa North America. Pero sa Pilipinas, it's not even high risk kasi people can start 6.
Exactly, man.
6, and you have like 6 businesses, and then you probably like 2 of them became successful, you're good, sa Pilipinas. And kailangan mo lang kailangan ka lang hindi ka masyado maarte. And the best thing na gagawin mo is like you shouldn't care about what people would say about you. Kunyari nagtayo ka ng banana queue, tapos sabihin ng mga tao, banana queue is, you know what a banana queue is, Kevin?
I do.
It's like those stands. The people look down on those. It's like people that are like working at McDonald's sa Pilipinas. When I went to the Philippines, like people like, oh yeah, he works at McDonald's, man. And then I looked at the McDonald's application. It says must graduate in college. In the freaking Philippines, I was walking in the mall, and then alam mo yung retail store na like a cheap retail store, like cheap. It says must have like 6 years in college or something like that. Must have bachelor's degree or something like that. Like, kailangan mag-graduate ka na high school just to work in a college in order to work to a retail store. And I'm like, that's kind of stupid. You're spending so much money to get this diploma. Magtatrabaho ka dyan. What you're really chasing is status. You're chasing status. Sa Pilipinas, parang nagtatrabaho sa McDonald's. But in my mind, I'm like, no, I like that guy working in the banana queue stand. Kasi nakita ko na parang he's more innovative. Tapos resourceful siya. Tapos titignan ko may plan siyang lumago. Ikaw, you can probably become a store manager, and maybe in 20 years you become like a regional manager, and then those kind of stuff, right? This guy is free to do whatever he wants to do. So yeah, you just shouldn't care about what those other people will do. And a lot of Filipinos don't care. Either their back is up against the wall and they have no other choice, pero they're doing really well for themselves when they're starting those things.
Yeah, man. You're headed towards a topic na parang gusto kong pumupunta ka sa gusto kong topic na matakel. Filipinos are, nabanggit ni Kevin kanina, isa sa mga nakikita niyang traits ng Filipino is yung talagang iba yung pagiging hardworking ba ng Filipinos. Have you noticed that, Kevin? Yeah. And sa example mo, Philip, na sa banana queue vendor and sa pagiging employee sa McDo, na I think nagbago na yun din. I think a high school graduate na lang ang kailangan nila, or I don't really know, pero I'm pretty sure nagbago na yun.
But you still have to graduate high school.
I think so.
Dito hindi. Kahit wala kang pinag-aaralan, pwede kang magtrabaho.
Although I'm not sure, I'll double check on that. Pero the point I want to hammer on is yung banana queue vendor, for sure, siguro mga 5 a.m. pa lang gising na yan. May tinatrabaho na yan. And then, isipin mo until who knows what hour of the day siya matatapos. Ibang hard work yung ina-exert niya. Hindi ko masasabing tamad yung nasa McDo, pero itong banana queue vendor na to, talagang I think his work doesn't feel like work. Hindi ko kaya mag-speak for the banana queue vendor kasi hindi ko siya kilala. Pero my point is, with the right tools and resources, information, yung hard work and ethic ng banana queue vendor na yun, kaya mo yun gawin into a full established business. Diba? So I think that's one of the good traits ng Filipino is the hard work and ethic. Sometimes nga lang, nagiging tamad yung isang Pilipino dahil yung work niya walang meaning para sa kanya. Alam mo yun? So I think that hard work needs to be utilized somewhere na talagang magbo-bloom siya. Kasi ang experience ko ngayon, sa work ko, may times na tamad ako. Pero when it comes to the business, willing akong kahit abutin ako ng midnight na may wina-work on ako about sa business. So, hindi ako tamad. I can't say na tamad ako. I'm just working on the wrong things or things that don't motivate me or don't inspire me. So I think kailangan lang ma-utilize ng yung hard work ng Filipino towards the right things, and makikita mo sobrang mag-e-excel ang Pinoy. Kasi they're working 8 hours on a job that they don't like. I think majority ng di lang sa Pilipinas may ganun, di ba? Sa US din may people na nag-work 8 hours or more on a job they don't like. Pero if they just work on the right things, they're gonna be the hard working people that they are. And I think, do you guys agree na yung Pilipino sobrang hardworking, they just need to redirect that hard work towards things that mean to them.
Ang sa tingin ko, kulang lang talaga. People are getting it now. Pero yung kulang lang talaga, if they can, people are so gung ho into this hard work thing, pero nakakalimutan nila to disperse their time to more efficient ways. So mga ibang tao, they would work so hard on a business, they forget na they can just hire somebody to run the business, and then they can have some ideas to branch out and expand the business. You know,
Yeah,
like
man.
a lot of people just masyado silang sobrang hard work, but then they don't use their brain. It doesn't really take that much. Pero I know hard work is addicting, katulad lalo sa Pilipino. Pero mga Pilipino, sa mga nakita ko talaga, I was very inspired sa YouTube ng mga nakikita kong mga successful businesses. Naging milyonaryo, billionaire, I don't really know, pero they're successful kasi it's not that they got more money, it's more like their status went up, their beliefs in this, their belief went up. They broke through a plane where they think that they can't afford a certain thing, and then they broke through it. Once they broke through it, para bang, I don't know, I see in their face that the sky is the limit, pero they're not thinking about things, they're thinking about stuff to do, to expand, which is great. Napapansin ko.
Yes. Sobrang nakarelate ako dun na before yung mga ginagawa ko sa business, I would never think na kaya ko siyang gawin. Pero every time tuwing naisip ko, pag may successful person o kung sino man, tao lang din naman yun. Ang pinakaiba ko sa kanya. Yun yung question dati na tumatakbo lagi sa isip ko nung empleyado pa ako sa call center. Anong pinagkaiba ko sa kanila? Yun lagi yung inisip ko noon. And then, ever since na-expose ako sa mga content ng mga business, mga ganun, and I was open to what's possible. And then, the next step was breaking my old bad habits or simply just old habits in general, and adopt new habits na align dun sa mga gusto ko na. Dun
That's
nagbago.
That's the thing. Once you get the taste of hope,
Yeah. May pag-asa.
Parang, Kevin, alam ba yung sabihin ng pag-asa?
Yeah. Hope.
Yeah. So, like when you're working on a rat race, na 9 to 5, and then it's a job is mundane, and then all of a sudden you see somebody, and then somebody inspired you to do something, and like you got, I don't know how to explain it, but you got this hope, like a spark in your mind, and it's like gnawing on you, and then all of a sudden this work that you have is like you don't care about this anymore.
Right.
Like, kinikita mo, even if you don't make any money here, you just want to do it, and that's what Joe was talking about.
I think like what we said in our last episode with the listener that called in, we touched on resources, right? Like how they in the Philippines is poor, poverty.
Yeah.
And what I told Andrew was maybe they just need that one person to encourage them and give them.
I listened to your segment, man. It was good.
Yeah, so it's not about like Filipinos are very resourceful, but once you give them more resources, like they'll expand even higher, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think what you both were touching on is as long as once someone teaches them or shows them that, hey, there's another way to do this, they'll move that work ethic that they have at call center or McDonald's or wherever you are into that new opportunity and bring that same work ethic. Then that's where they just really start to explode and, grow from there. But it's really just people informing them of the opportunities.
You know what I noticed too, sa mga Pilipino?
Mhm.
It's not just work ethic, and it's not. I think it's more like work pride. They don't want to get embarrassed saying that their works their job sucks. You know, like if they do something and then somebody say, "Hey, you did a bad job on that," they get so embarrassed that they'll do
Yeah.
it perfectly.
Mhm.
Dito sa Canada, pag sinabi mong Pilipino, they it's not that they say they're hardworking. It's more like they do their job right,
Mhm.
kind of thing. I think that's one of the trait ng mga Pilipino nakikita ko. It's probably similar there in the US, but it's overall.
I think that's a good topic to touch on and a good ending point. You guys are familiar with the Filipino pride. I think Filipinos yung masyado yung pinagmamalaki nila. Diba, kung si Pacquiao lalaban, oh, the Filipino pride, lahat ng Pinoy supportado
Okay.
si Pacquiao. It's the Filipino pride na a good example is pag nalaman ng
Representation.
something like that, and
I think it's because they see themselves in Pacquiao, just coming from nothing, and he
yeah, and
literally fought his way to get to the top. I think that's the pride that we have when we were watching him, is hey, that's someone that's something that we could do because we started where he started, and he just hustled to get there. And I think that's the pride that we had watching him. It's not really. I mean, it's nice to watch him fight and win, but it's just that deeper feeling of hey, this is a Filipino fighter that came from the Philippines, and he's humble, man, when he fights, and he's smiling, beating up his opponent. That's Filipino right there, man.
He really didn't put any shame. Like most fighters would do some kind of antics where any kind of disparaging things like shaming on opponent or anything like that. He was like fighting like a saint, which is that's why people have a hard time saying anything bad about him.
Yeah, he just stayed respectful the whole time.
As long as he doesn't sing,
Uh-huh.
Pero yeah, I think that's it. I'm all good. Do you guys have anything to share? Anything that you think that needs na ma-mention sa episode na to? And
I'm actually curious about yung mga Filipino Hawaiian kasi it's an island culture. It's the same as Pilipinas.
Right.
Ano yung traits ng mga Pilipino sa Hawaii? Kasi yung mga Pilipino sa California, iba ugali sa Pilipinas, Toronto. Yung mga Pilipino sa New York, iba yung ugali sa Pilipinas sa Hawaii. Ano yung trait ng mga Pilipino sa Hawaii? Like if you travel the world, for example, and then you meet a Filipino and they say, I'm from Hawaii, and automatically you're like, oh, you guys vibing because you guys get along. Na yung mga traits, ano yung traits ng mga Hawaiian Filipino?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, they're more laid back, right? You hear that about Hawaii, it's slower here, or they're laid back. And that's true. They're more relaxed. They're not so uptight.
But they do the Filipino time too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
3 hours late?
They do that.
3 hours behind, man. If you want a party to start at 8, you better put on your invitation. It starts at 5.
Exactly.
They'll show up at 8. But no, they're laid back. But another thing is showing respect. Really, especially what I noticed here in Hawaii compared to living in California. A good example is road rage. In California, there's road rage, and if you cut someone off, they can drive forever, man. You're on the mainland, and you don't know where they live. You can just keep chasing them until you run out of gas. Here in Hawaii, the road rage is just you let it go because you just know where to hide, and it's because we're stuck on an island. There's so many of us here, especially on Oahu. The respect it has to be mutual. We have to get along here, and that's another big thing that you notice, not just from the Filipinos, but just people in Hawaii in general. You respect each other, and you look out for each other because we're literally on a rock where it's just us.
You guys have like a fear of the volcano there erupting?
it's in the back of your mind, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you try not to let it stop you from, enjoying.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Is it true that it's all Tacoma? Everybody has
Oh, that's
Tacoma.
true.
That's
Yeah,
true. And
Tacoma,
you see the
especially.
segment where Jokoy is like the biggest car dealership in the US. It's
Uh-huh.
Hawaii, and everything was Tacoma. You see that
That's
clip?
true, man. Yeah, it's not a joke. I mean, if it's funny, but if you see a Tacoma, if you're driving a Tacoma and you see someone else with a Tacoma,
Yeah.
you just throw them a shaka, man. Because you get it. Like, hey, I like your car.
The status of the Filipinos sa Hawaii. Are
Mhm.
they, so dito, I told you earlier, yung mga status ng mga Pilipino dito, because it's mostly like first generation. We haven't been here long enough to get established, right? I said like yung mga dito is more nannies, PSWs, like nurses, but their kids are becoming doctors, psychologists, teachers, and so on, and probably their grandkids are going to be much more higher, right? In Filipinos in Hawaii, they've been rooted there for a while. So, ano yung status ng mga Pilipino sa Hawaii?
How would I explain that? It's tough. Well, for one, there's nurses, right? There's a lot of
They're everywhere, everywhere.
Filipino nurses. My wife's father-in-law, he's a doctor, Filipino. So that's a big thing. But for me, I'm in the real estate business, and I noticed that a lot of the real estate agents and investors, they're Filipinos. I don't know if it's because it's just we're here in Hawaii and there's so many Filipinos in Hawaii, but like the Filipinos here in Hawaii, a lot of them are big in real estate, which I think goes back to the point we were making earlier. It's not about, well, it is about work ethic, but they were given the resources, right? They were given the opportunity and they were taught the different opportunities with real estate. And now they move their work ethic over to that state.
They're more successful.
Yeah, yeah. So you can really see the way the Filipinos work, and like you said, they have not that no shame, but they have their purpose when they do their work. You can really see that they have a purpose. They're driven. And as far as status, I think I don't really focus too much, so it's hard for me to answer as far as status with different job titles. But as far as my what I do with real estate, there's a lot of Filipinos that are just really successful here in Hawaii. I hope that answers your question.
That's great.
Are there levels when it comes to are they segmented? Like here in Toronto, Filipinos are not as intact as a community. In Hawaii, are they also dispersed and then different levels, or are they more together?
So yes and no. I'd say there are levels, but because the family ties here in Hawaii is so strong, you don't really focus on the different levels because you look at them as a unit, as their family. So there may be some in that family that
So
are
same in the Philippines.
Yeah. So those really in that family that have higher status or higher paying jobs or whatever, they carry the family. And those that are at the bottom, they benefit from that, but also with the hope that eventually they'll get to that level where they're able to give their part to the family.
It's like, sorry, sabi ko lang, it's like crab mentality, but the opposite.
What do you mean?
Like, instead of maghilahan pababa, naghihilahan sila pataas.
Crabs in the bucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
May time pa ba tayo?
Yeah.
Pero, a lot of people, this might be controversial, sasabihin ko, pero I think para sa akin, ang pinaka-importante, ang pinaka-positive sa Pilipino is the shaming.
What do you mean?
So, alam mo a lot of people think shame is horrible and is bad, but I think shame is the one that's preventing you from doing something bad.
Yeah.
Yung mga Pilipino, for example, when I was younger, pagka meron akong report card na back in the day, it's called satisfactory. If you get an S in your report card, it's basically almost a fail. So every time I go home, it's a red mark. So, and then all the before they spank me, they would say, nakakahiya naman sa lola mo. And like, huwag mong papakita mo sa lola mo to, nakakahiya naman to, nakakahiya to. And then a lot of people would say, you know, like people, Filipinos, they shame people too much. I think if you really think about it, because sa Pilipinas, there's not that much mental problems because it's an island country, you know, and the culture is more intact. This shame is actually a positive thing sa Filipino. If you had it here, yung shame aspect dito sa North America, because the culture here is different, they don't have a tight bond within the family community, there's going to be a big mental health problem. Sa Pilipinas, yung shaming thing is actually the stuff that propels you forward. Kasi sabihin natin, oh, it's a bad example, pero sabihin natin ito, you have the opportunity to make a lot of money by selling drugs sa Pilipinas. A lot of money, right? Yung status mo tataas kasi financially, kasi marami kang pera. Pero every single family member you have is saying, no, he's not a part of my family. He's saying, you know, like disown na yan. It's shame. In North America, if you're parang they glorify drug dealers that are breaking the law. If you know what I mean, right? Like rap culture and all those things sa labas, gangster movies, mga ganon. Filipinas, they shame those things even though they're making money. So I really believe the shame part of the Philippines is actually our biggest thing. That's just in my head.
I hear what you're saying. I think what parents are doing now, because here in the US, because of mental health being brought to light, instead of just saying, why are your grades like this? They say, this is why your grades shouldn't be like this. You know, this is why I'm pushing you to better yourself, instead of just, hey, this isn't good. And, you know, before it used to work because you're scared, right? You're going to get in trouble if you come home with bad grades. But now that they instill more reason behind why you should do what they want you to do, and you start to understand it. And then that's how I say, like with the family culture here in Hawaii, even though there's different levels, once you start to understand the reason for doing what you do, it just elevates you, and you now have more purpose. And then that's when your family starts going up, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think a person na pag nalaman niya why he's doing what he's doing and he is aligned with that, he'll be one of the most hardworking people you'll know.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if, I know we're recording, but this is kind of controversial too, but I think this is a real big positive with Filipinos is religion. If you guys want to touch on that.
Yeah, let's touch on it, man.
So myself, I'm Iglesia, and religion growing up, being Iglesia, our families, they really revolve around faith in the church. And we take those lessons and the values from the church and we instill that into the family, and that kind of plays onto the shame part too. It's not just about grades, but how you carry yourself, like selling drugs, not just breaking the law, but you shouldn't be doing that, right? Because of religion and what we're taught. Well, I just want to know what you guys have to say.
In terms of what?
In terms of religion and how it affects the Filipino culture in a positive way.
In a positive way. I was actually discussing this to my brother because Philippines, when it comes to the Philippines, right, there's like basically two major religion, north and south. Like more south is Muslim, and then more north is like Catholic, Christian, and stuff like that, right? Then my brother was asking me, hey, what's the original religion in the Philippines? And I said, well, nah, if you really think about it, it's more tribal stuff, because Philippines wasn't really a country. It's like islands, and different rulers between islands and stuff like that, right? And then traders would come in from India or from Malaysia, from Vietnam or China, and they would influence the culture, right? And then over time, Muslims became prominent in the south, and then the north, um, like Buddhist, like China. You can see Buddhist temples in the Philippines, right? Those kind of stuff. And then when it got colonized, it was forced. Catholic Christianity is basically forced in the Philippines, right? Now, people would think there's some negative parts of that for sure, but if you really dive deep into the values that got instilled in the Filipino culture from Christianity, is actually a big help when it came to family values, like, and let's just say people would say, getting closer to the Almighty, like not creating sin, basically, which is hiya. Like people would say,
Yeah.
Really, sin is hiya, kakahiya, right?
Mhm.
If you think about that, and then honor your father and your mother. Since, like, if you really think way back, it's not even in the Ten Commandments. Like, even before the Ten Commandments was created, those things are really instilled in humanity, right? So a lot of atheists would say, man, it's actually gonna be controversial for sure. Holy cow.
Let's
A lot
go.
of atheists,
Andrew,
yeah, I know,
sorry.
like I had some debates back in the day, atheists and stuff like that. They're so, they believe so much in their atheism that it became a religion to them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um, Filipinos believe, I don't know why, but maybe because it's not island culture where you see the sun and the moon and the stars so much and there's waves and stuff like that. They believe in the Almighty. They believe in God. They believe in something to worship. And if you think about the Filipino culture more, they actually believe in tikbalang, kapre, and all those things, or superstitious stuff.
Yeah.
So they're very more inclined to religious beliefs, Filipinos. So if you break it down, it's really evil spirits and then good spirits, right? And depending on your nature, if you're in sound of mind, you go to the good spirits, which is religion stuff. So I believe Filipinos, even I would say 1,000 years from now, they're still going to be religious, more religious than usual. So depending on, like, it depends on other countries like North America. I think Philippines are just going to be just purely religious.
Mhm.
It's ingrained in the Filipinos, even way back then.
Yeah. And I think, well, kadalasan ng mga nakikilala kong tao dito, the good people that I meet, majority of the time, are religious. And kasi sa akin, before, medyo uncomfortable conversation ng religion. Kasi I don't know where to put myself, where to categorize myself. Kasi nung before umattend ako ng misa, I didn't know what I was doing. Di ko alam ba't ako pumupunta dito. May nire-recite yung pare sa harap, nag-homily, hindi ako nakikinig, bata ako nito. Then I didn't understand the purpose of it. Hindi in-explain ng magulang ko sa akin why we're here. All I know is we're here because para kay God, we pray and then things like that. And then nung mga teenage years ko, pero lately, teenage up to maybe right now. Well, not right now. Medyo iba na yung views ko ngayon. Let's say teenage to 20s, early 20s. I'm more of hindi atheist eh. Kasi although hindi ako ganun ka-vocal, hindi talaga ako vocal about, sharing my views on spiritual or religious side. And then, pag may mga nag-share ng views nila, I feel off. Like, I don't know why. I feel off. Pero, whenever someone would say bad about religion, about God, hindi yun maganda para sa akin. I don't like it. I feel like this person is It's a bad dude. Parang ganun. Like, for me, if you disagree with something, did you even try to bother understanding it? Parang ganun. Para sa akin, ganun siya ngayon. And then, from that part of my sabi nating religious journey, from that part of my journey, sige, categorize na natin na atheist yung part na yun. Nag-move ako to agnostic. You guys familiar with agnostic? Like, in the middle. So, nung nasa gitna na ako, I learned to, out of curiosity, really try to understand both sides. Bakit ba may mga di naniniwala? Bakit may naniniwala? Bakit ito? Bakit yan? And then, for a teenager, parang that was too much for me to comprehend. And then, I couldn't bring it up sa parents ko. Say, we're not used to having conversations like those. Kahit sa kapatid, kahit sa friends, mga ganun, never. So parang nasa sarili ko lang yung conversation na yun. Umikot lang sa isip ko. And ano bang alam ko nung times na yun? So nobody was able to answer any of my question because the questions never even got out. And now, nagkaroon ako yung girlfriend ko, she's a born-again Christian. And then, nung naging kami, hindi niya alam ano yung stance ko about religion or anything. And then, at one point in our relationship, I felt like na-introduce na ako sa topic ng personal development nito. I felt I had the need to let her know what I think about, this topic. Sabi ko sa kanya, I'm agnostic. I can't get into the whole conversation na ginawa namin kasi mahaba yun. It's gonna be a very long story. She cried. Then I hope if my girlfriend is listening to this, sana okay lang sa'yo na sinishare ko to dito ngayon. Pero my intention with this is pure. Umiyak siya and then she tried to understand me. Sobrang thankful ako dun. And then she never shoved her religion onto me, but she made me, she was the one that served as like, trying to answer yung questions na umiikot sa utak ko nung teenager pa ako na walang sumasagot. And then hindi niya pinapamukha sa akin na ganito dapat. She's just answering talaga kung ano yung tingin niya. And then I'm able to, so ito pala yung rason kung bakit there are people na more inclined to religion, more spiritual. And then sobrang thankful ako doon dahil I think before never ko na-open up siya sa kahit na sino na religious na siguro relative kasi feeling ko pag nalaman nilang may doubts ako, baka feeling ko parang i-out nila ako. They treat me as an outcast, parang nagtingin ko ganun, kaya I was too afraid.
Talaga?
I mean, hindi ko malalaman kung yun talaga ang kalalabasan kasi never ko tinry. Pero yun yung feeling ko that time.
So,
pero ngayon man, so tapusin ko lang.
yeah.
Pero ngayon, although hindi ako fully committed, I find myself thanking God for things na nangyayari sa buhay ko. Like genuinely thanking God na thank you for making me this way, mga ganun. Minsan naiiyak ako minsan. Tapos, thankful lang ako sa girlfriend ko dahil doon ko naranasan sa girlfriend ko yung parang unconditional love nga. Doon ko na-realize meron palang gano'n.
Yung usapan natin ngayon ito, Kevin, what we're talking about, I have a kid. Like, I have a 6 and I have a 1.5-year-old boy. And then I kept asking, my wife's Catholic, I'm Christian. So, but it's the same thing, right? Iglesia ni Cristo is the same thing, right? Then I was like, hey, I kind of want, because both of us were like not so religious because I grew up born again Christian. My mom and dad are pastors. I grew up in the verses of Bibles. My school in the Philippines was a Christian school. They made me memorize each chapter of the Holy Book. So, and the only thing I studied back when I was younger was religion. So that's why when I was a teenager, I rebelled. Like, I don't want to be part of that. Now that I have a kid, I'm like, we should have this. We should have them grow up with religion. Both of us agreed. And I was contemplating it sa nung gabi, and I was contemplating it kung bakit ba when I rebelled when I was younger. Then I came to the realization that religion is actually a cheat sheet to life. It's a cheat sheet on how to become successful in life because everything is laid out in front of you, saying if you do this, you'll feel this, you'll feel better about yourself. If you do that, you're eternal damnation in hell. Basically, you're gonna do really bad in life. So if you really think about religion, it's really a cheat sheet on how to do better in life. And it's actually instilled in there the values on what you have to follow. So it doesn't matter kung sa anong part ng Christianity yung susundan. It's the same. Kasi yung it's good and bad. And then these are the steps in how to do it. And then you don't even have to find out for yourself anymore. Like there's no trial and error. This is the cheat sheet. Follow this and then do what you want with it. And then you'll become successful. You can follow parts of it and you'll become half successful. That's the way I thought about it. Kasi these kids should know about religion and then try to practice it. And then, at least they have this instilled in them. Na it's actually religious too. It's actually the barrier that's stopping you from doing like really bad stuff, like pure sinful stuff, like murder, like kidnapping, robbery, like killing somebody through drugs or any malicious intent, like stabbing people in the back by words. You know what I mean? So religion is that block that stops you. Kahit na minsan galit ka, there's still something to stop you from doing it. And I think the stuff that you learn from religious stuff na tinuturo sa'yo is the thing that stops you. I think that's why. That's why it's very important. That's why yung mga Filipino, I truly believe this. All around the world, you'll never hear na, yung mga Pilipino magnanakaw yan. Like yung mga Pilipino, wag mo i-hire yan, they're not gonna work hard. Yung mga Pilipino, they don't treat their, like for example, nannies, right? Nannies here. Filipinos are in demand here kasi pag mag-alaga sila ng bata, they treat the kids like their own son or daughters. Right?
Right.
That's the values that they had. And I believe that you can see them, like they go to every Sunday, you'll see like, alam nakakatawa dito. Right? Nakakatawa dito. It says, makita ko Greek, not Greek, I'm like, St. Luke's Cathedral or something like that, Catholic, diba? You drive by on a Sunday, it's a freaking lineup. It's full of Filipinos. And then you see Filipino, one white family, and like freaking hundreds of Filipino, and then one white family. It's like every single church na Sunday is all packed with Filipinos. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what it is the values, like what you said, how Philippines itself, religious will be religious always. And, not to get to the extremes of different religions, but just the values.
That's going to be very controversial if you compare religion to other religions.
So, just the values of religion that Filipinos carry, it's just, like you said, it gives you the template, the guide to life. And just carrying that, being raised with that, it instills into your conscious mind of, hey, this sin is just out of hand. You should never do this. And I think as long as you remember those values, you carry yourself in a way that, you can contribute to society. You're not going to be a menace to anyone. And I think that's what I really like about Filipinos, just anywhere you go, like you said, they have those values to do what's right, to do what's good. Yeah.
Dro, your girl is actually is very, very nice for somebody that's religious, that's not forcing it down on your throat. And then they let you live your own life, and then they use themselves as an example for you to follow. That's a really good thing she's doing.
Yeah, man.
It's okay, man. You can cry now.
Sobrang grateful ako sa kanya. And the more, speaking of example, yung isa sa mga client namin, he's, ang tawag sa kanya, he's the 400 million man. Yun yung net worth niya. And then, every time, he's really open about his faith. And the more and more he talks about his faith, parang nakakikita ko yung, ito pala yung, so this is what's possible if you just really narrowed down to your faith. Parang meron siyang natatakbuhan, meron siyang problems na hindi niya may paliwanag sa sarili niya. Di ba? Whether it's God, di ba? He doesn't feel alone kahit mag-isa lang siya physically. He never feels that way. And I say to myself, I want that. Parang ganun. And then, one of his episodes sa podcast niya, naging guest niya sino yun? Yung comedian, si Foxworthy. I forgot the full name of the guy. You guys know that? James Foxworthy yata.
Jamie Foxx?
No. Jeff Foxworthy pala. Jeff Foxworthy.
Oh, I don't know him.
Yeah, but he's a comedian. He's also open about it. Na-share niya rin yung faith niya doon. And then, he's a surprising di mo siya kilala. Kasi, I think, sikat siya sa US as a comedian. Pero anyways, siya rin, inattribute niya rin yung his whole life to his faith, yung success niya. He admits that he's vulnerable. May mga times na yung saying na tao ka lang. He doesn't act like perfect. Kasi dati, kaya tingin ko, hindi ako open na i-adapt yung, kasi ang idea ko ng religion dati is this concept na you're gonna be this pure person that never sins. And basta parang ganun yung idea ko ng religion dati. Never na-explain sa akin as a kid. And so I think, ngayon, naunawaan ko na much better. I'm being more and more open to it. Pero, yung pagiging religious nga ng Pinoy, kung papipiliin mo ako, kung who I would hang out with, whether mga cool kids na, alam mo yun, cool kids na party, tapos mga atheists, or yung quote-unquote boring na group, and they're religious, they know their values, I would always pick the other one kahit you would say they're quote-unquote boring.
Yeah.
Ginawa ko na example yung boring, pero they're not boring. Pero gusto ko lang
what did they say sa quote? There's no atheist in the foxhole.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
What does that mean?
Sa gera, like in a war, right? And like sometimes there's the trench, and then like yung mabukay kayo ng lupa, right. And then patayin. There's no atheist in that hole.
I get it. Yep. So that's why I think yung isa sa pagiging religious ang pinaka positive traits ng Filipinos. And take note, this is coming from someone na nagmula sa agnostic. And I think nasa in the middle na ako ngayon ng agnostic tsaka religious. So parang nag-progress yung journey ko.
How about you, Kevin? Are you more religious now than usual?
I'd say so. Now that I'm married and we have our own child, for me personally, religion is just like what Andrew mentioned. I think it's more humility that you're human. I think that's like not just God, but anybody that if you don't really believe in God, the listeners, just a higher power. There's something more. Like when you are, because life is hard, right? Life can get hard, and when you hit your limit, if you have that faith that there's something more that you can call on or pray to, I think that gives you hope. So I think that's what I'm trending more towards now. As we get older, you realize like, okay, life can get tough. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for may add ka pa ba, Philip? All right. So
you milked the cow, man.
Thanks for sharing. That's a really good ending point to this episode, man. Di ko alaing we'll go there. But it's good.
This is awesome about the podcast kasi we have like a goal and then we go like
yeah.
Yeah.
Kung saan na mapupunta yung topic, pero it's one of the joys of the podcast. Pero yun lang, guys, thank you if you made it this far. I want to thank you for listening throughout the episode and also for listening to the other episode as well. Kasi napapansin ko, there's a recent spike in listeners in the previous episodes, in specific episodes. So appreciate the support. And if you want to continue supporting, feel free to follow the podcast sa mga social platforms. Just search at Filipino Millennial Mindset. And also, gumawa ako ng Facebook group. Not sure if na-bring up ko din sa inyo. Pero the point of the group is, hindi siya para sa podcast. It's just for people na, like nung na-mention ko kanina, yung about religion. Never kong na-bring up yung thoughts ko with the family kasi I was afraid of being outcasted. So, in that group, if you have questions or mga tulad ng experience ko na yun, you can go to that group and simply have a conversation with one of us or all of us, and you know, we can converse, and that's the last place where you'll be judged. Just don't be a jerk, diba? Sabi ko, don't be an asshole. Just don't. Pero yun yung point ng ano na yun, ng group na yun. If you want to be, you know, may things in mind ka na gusto mo open up and you're afraid of being judged, go to that group. That's the last place you'll be judged. So anyway guys, that's all. Okay guys, join kayo kung gusto nyo.
Great. See you next episode.
Yeah man. Peace.
Peace.